Good morning, everyone. I'm very pleased to introduce our speaker today, our very own Didier Peron, who's been an Old Guard member now for 4 years. Didier is multi-talented. He's retired from medical practice as an ear, nose, and throat specialist, most recently at Summit Medical Group before it changed names. As the chair of the Financial and Investment Group, he has provided direction and his own financial insights, as well as orchestrating interesting meetings. Today, he is going to speak to us about another passion of his, art, and in particular, the Dada and Surrealist movements. As a poor student in the Latin Quarter on the left bank of the Seine in Paris, he was surrounded by many art galleries and exhibition spaces, which he frequented and became immersed in the exhibits and what they had to offer. It did not hurt that at the opening of an exhibit, the gallery would provide free glasses of champagne. But the art spoke to him, and today he will speak to us. DJ, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Rich. Yeah, it's true. When I moved to Paris in 1962, I was 18, and let me put the first slide. To go from my apartment to the university, I had to walk by about 20 different galleries, and I usually would come back another way to see another 20. And it's true, the champagne was flowing pretty well. I never lost my way, though. Amazing. So, hang on. I got it. I know you're the expert. Oh, you have to click share again, no? What is it? What did I do wrong?
Nothing.
Nothing? Wow, okay, great. Yeah, let's go back one. How do you go back one? Yeah. So I have to give some credit here today to John Tomaszewski. John, can you stand up and show your shirt? Where is he? Have you seen his shirt? It says Surrealist. So at least I have one fan here among us. Thank you for bringing the spirit here. So yeah, all my life I've been interested in art. This was my second passion after medicine, I guess I have to. Although there were years I put art before medicine when I was a student. Sometimes the medical part came second. And I've been all my life. I've been very interested in how an art movement leads to another one. What's the link between different art movements? I've been very interested in art and as well as music. Does a composer did that? That's because he was influenced by others. And this link, this evolution in painting and music has always been my Dada. Dada in French means hobby. So I'm going to talk about the Dada and Surrealism, mostly Dada. We'll spend most time talking about Dada because I think that's the most important. Surrealism is also important, but I want to mention first the hyperrealism, which should not be confused with surrealism. Hyperrealism, yeah, it works. Started in the mid-60s in the USA. basically it's called hyperrealism or extreme realism, photorealism, superrealism. It's an art style that creates realistic images that look like high-resolution photograph. So it really looks like a photograph, and this has been the criticism to hyperrealism, because it was almost too easy. But here is an example, Richard Estes. It looks like a photograph, doesn't it? And another one here, God knows why she painted this. All right, but it is what it is. Rod Penner, a Canadian, who probably did that before he moved to Texas. And then this is not the Summit Diner, although it looks like it. I kind of like this painting. The first time I saw one of those hyper-realist painting, I was walking again in the Latin Quarter, and there was this gallery with a beautiful hyper-realist painting. I walked in and asked the owner, how much does it cost? And it was really an enormous amount of money. And in view of my surprise, the fellow told me, yeah, but it requires so much time, so much skill to make a painting like this. And I understand that. They are very difficult. You'll never see Picasso doing a painting like that. This takes too much time. Picasso could do one of these paintings in probably half a day. He was very quick. This painting, you've all seen that one by Ed Ruscha. Mike Martin, is he here, Mike Martin? Oh, he's here. Okay, we can talk about you. Mike gave us or maybe we have to be careful what we're saying. He gave us a lecture a few months ago on the symbolism in art. And he showed us this painting, which really is very symbolic, as he explained. Ed Ruscha lived in Los Angeles. His parents were in Nashville? No, Oklahoma, somewhere, anyway. So he would go back and forth on Route 66, I think. And there was always that gas station where he would stop and so on. And the gas station still exists to this day. This was painted in 1964. So the reason I'm putting this painting, this painting here, is you may wonder, is this hyperrealist? Is this surrealist? Is this kind of not real? It's a bit surreal. It's a bit surrealist to me. But is it hyperrealist? Well, maybe not, because there's no oil on the pumps. The paint is fresh. There's no paint chipping, and the sky is really too blue to be true. So Ed Ruscha, this painting, by the way, is very big. It's 10 by 5 feet. So it's really probably as big as the screen. So it was sold at Christie. Anybody wants to, would you pay, say, $10,000 for that? Raise your hand. I would pay $10,000. Would you pay $1 million for that? You got a few. More than like $10 million for that? You got a few hands. Well, okay. Here's the answer. $68 million and change. That was, but enough said about hyperrealism. But the reason, again, why I put this painting here is that when you walk through a museum or wherever, you see a painting, sometimes it's very hard to tell, is this hyperrealist, is this surrealist, is this abstract or whatever? And sometimes it's a melting pot of different styles. Let's go to the nitty-gritty of the reason we're here. So Dada, Dada is an art movement that started in 1915 in Zurich, Switzerland, which was, so this was World War I. World War I started in 1914. So Switzerland was a neutral country, and a lot of artists went to Switzerland during World War I. And they started it was at the origin a literary movement. Just like the surrealism, we'll see that in a while, was also a literary movement at the origin. So they had manifestos, they had publications, and the movement primarily involved literature. Here I'm reading the definition: poetry, visual arts, art manifestos, art theory, theater, graphic design. Dada was born out a negative reaction to the horrors of World War I. You could say the horrors, and they would also say the stupidity of World War I. So the Dada concentrated in an anti-war movement with rejection of the prevailing standards in art through anti-art cultural works. In addition to being anti-war, Dada was also anti-bourgeois and had political affinities to the radical left. They were all communist. On the left is really the founder of Dada, Tristan Tzara, a Romanian who went to Zurich in 1915, 14. He was Jewish, he was a poet, author, artist, journalist, political activist, and eventually moved to Paris in 1919. After the war, World War I, many of the artists in Switzerland, they moved to Paris, and Paris became the international mecca of the world for art. Now it's no longer Paris. It's New York, it's Singapore, Hong Kong, London. But Paris has lost its prestige for art in this 21st century. There's no money in France, so art goes where the money is. It's true. Tzara, yeah, is quite a guy. So you can see that we started with the anti-war feelings that became anti-establishment, anti-politics, anti-bourgeois, anti-capitalism, anti-academic art, anti-art. So anti-war, anti-art. So they started to, I said they were mostly literary people, and here is Tzara with the three of his colleagues, and you remember there was no internet, no television, so they would meet in cafe or in salon and exchange ideas, just like us, the old guard, we go across the street to the Prestige Diner and we exchange our ideas. So it's not much different. The poetry that, they were all poets, writers, critics. This is an example of the type of poetry. And I'll let you read that. You're supposed to read that. The sky, blue water, whisper, dream, coffee. I mean, you're supposed to express yourself a certain way. Tzara explained how to create a Dada poem. He said it's very easy. You pick up a newspaper, you choose an article, you take a pair of scissors, cut all the words out, put the words in a basket, shed the basket, and then pick up the words one at a time and line them up, and you got your poem. So, of course, it's irrational, it's nonsense, but it is Dada. I had a friend who was a Dada artist, I was probably 18, 19. I was just in Paris, and he was some late 60s, so he had lived through that. In those days, I did not understand what he was talking about, and he would give me poetry and sometimes drawings. Unfortunately, I've lost everything, but this is you could say that this is what we call a game of chance, those poems. But Tsar did not agree with that. He said, this is not a game of chance. You chose the paper, you chose the article, your hand chose the words in the basket. So it is your creation. Game of chance, I think it's kind of a game of chance, but it's my chance when I create the poem. It's a little bit like John Cage. Anybody has heard of the composer, American composer, John Cage? Yeah, got a few hands going up. John Cage did some of his music. He calls it a game of chance. I think John Cage is a most prominent composer of the 20th century, by the way. My wife will disagree with that on that, but it's not the type of music you will hear in the elevator or at the supermarket, but it's quite revolutionary in the history of music, just like Tsar and his poems. So I'm going to talk about three Dada artists. Time is running, huh? And then we'll tackle surrealism, and we'll talk about three surrealist artists. Francis Picabia is French. He's a painter, a writer, filmmaker, magazine publisher, a poet. He was in everything. He had an affinity for machine aesthetics, like a lot of the Dada artists. And you can see on the drawings on the right, you know, the one in the middle looks like a spark plug to me, but the one on the far right, God knows what it is, but that was their expression of for that machine aesthetics. I do believe that the Dada was very influential to what was coming next. It's the Bauhaus. The Bauhaus, that German school of, which started as an architecture school, which eventually branched on painting, sculpture. That school, the Bauhaus, we could spend another hour on the Bauhaus. The Bauhaus started in 1919, so right after that, and you can see the machine drawings were very much in the mind of the Bauhaus artists who were designing with art. You know, that's when we started to see art in a coffee maker or a chair should be, Mies van der Rohe drew his chairs a certain way. And that was Bauhaus. Back to Picabia. He was quite an interesting guy. He went to the USA after the war, actually before World War II, I think, where he met Gertrude Stein, the American writer. He also spent a lot of time with Walter Arnsberg. If you watch PBS, the PBS channels, you always see Arnsberg Foundation. Thank you for the... Arnsberg had a house in Greenwich Village, and all the artists were coming to his house. And Arnsberg, who got his money from his father, the steel industry, was a collector himself. So that's how you see the Arnsberg Foundation on PBS station. So Picabia went to New York, and right there, right at that time, the Dadaism spread like the flu. It spread to Germany, to the US, to Asia. It was very quick. The movement was very quick. I think I'm done with Picabia. That's the painting in the middle is, you can't see that too well. It's by Picabia. They were very good artists, those people. This picture is an exhibit in Paris in 1913. And you can see the Modigliani sculptures there at the bottom. I love that picture. I would have loved to see that exhibit. Yeah, I'll talk about the influence of, yeah, obviously you can see here the influence from the Cubist. The painting in the middle, you can see those shapes, very cubic. Remember, Cubism started in 1908, 1909, and here we're talking about 1912. So all those artists had adopted the Cubist style. There's another movement, the Futurism movement, that you probably, that's another subject. Let's skip. Man Ray. Man Ray was born in Philadelphia. I don't know if he was an Eagle fan, but he probably would be happy tonight, today. You can see him on the right with his crooked nose. Probably was punched by a lefty, because if you're punched by a lefty, your nose shifts to the left. If you push to the righty, your nose shifts to the right. So I'm sure it's a lefty that punched him. And do you know who's the fellow next to him? Anybody? Yeah, Dali. Dali, before while he was growing his mustache, and you can see him with his wide eyes open, typical of Dali. Man Ray was known mostly as a photographer, although he considered himself a painter before all, and he was a great painter. But I'll show you one of his photographs on the left. Basically what he did, then that's very Dada. He took some object, placed them on a gelatin silver photosensitive paper, and then got a picture. Yeah, he was talented. He had a lot of imagination. He was a filmmaker as well. This is a photograph. It's called the violon d'Ingres. Violon d'Ingres means hobby in French, and Ingres is the name of a painter who actually painted a model from the back like this. It's a well-known picture by Ingres. So it was kind of it's a play. And he drew, on the photograph, this is a photograph, he painted those music signs on the back. The model is very interesting. Kiki de Montparnasse, she was a famous performer, the model of many artists, quite fun. Read her story. This was the most expensive painting sold ever. 2 years ago at Christie, it fetched over $12 million. Not bad for a day at the office. Huh? Now, the third and last artist, Dada, is Marcel Duchamp, and not the least. You can see him on the right, and on the picture on the left, he's on the left with his two brothers. The two brothers were artists. They had 3 sisters. They were one of them became famous. Duchamp was a painter, he was a sculptor, he was a writer, he was very well educated. His father was a real estate lawyer, had a lot of money. And thank God Duchamp probably would not be what he is, or what he was, if it was not for his father, who kind of helped him a lot. he was also a chess player, very, very good chess player, I was told. And you don't make much money playing chess, let me tell you. But Duchamp was very talented. Let me show you, this is just before he became a Dada. 3 paintings that are currently at the Philadelphia Museum of Art. Duchamp was a charmer, he had a lot of charm, and so the curator of the Philadelphia Museum in those days was Madame d'Arnoncourt, who now has a street to her name behind the museum. If you go there, check that out. And so she really liked Duchamp, and Duchamp was very instrumental when he lived in the States. He lived in the States many years at guiding collectors, the art world, into what they should buy, what they should show. It was very important in the American development of art for that reason. But those three paintings are at the museum. The one on the left, you can see his 2 brothers are playing chess with his 2 sisters. The one on the far right is the, it's very cubist. The one in the middle at the bottom is called, it's called King and Queen Surrounded by Nudes. Okay, if you have a good imagination, you can see that. What Duchamp wanted to do here, and that was inspired by the futurist, the Italian movement. He wanted to add a 4th dimension to painting, and this was very important, I think, because the painting, you can see it goes up and down. The 2 dimensions, you have the depth, and then you have I don't know if it's the king or the queen, kind of going down, and it gives you a sensation of movement. So he kind of liked that, but that was before Dada. So Duchamp called this retinal art. See that? Because, as he said, let me quote him here, retinal art is intended to only please the eye. Instead, Duchamp, he said, I wanted to use art to serve the mind, the gray matter of understanding. It should not be purely visual. Art should not be purely visual. So at that point, he rejected all the classic, the Matisse and the Gauguin of the time, and he decided to move to more Dada art. And one of his most well-known is style is the ready-made. Ready-made definition, you take an object and declare it object of art, elevating everyday object to the status of fine arts. That's a ready-made. And you can see the one on the right is called, on the left for you, it's called Fontaine, although you may call it differently. It's sold at Sotheby's in 1999 for $1.7 million. Unfortunately, Duchamp was dead, he didn't see that. There was a panel of 500 prominent artists, historians, 500, in 2004 that met and decided what's the most influential artwork of the 20th century, and that was Fontaine. Fontaine was voted as the most influential artwork. Belle Hélène on the left, it's sold not too long ago. But 20 years ago, for $11 million. So Duchamp, like you can see the woman there, it's not a woman, it's Duchamp himself. Duchamp liked to dress, to cross-dress, put a wig. Once in a while, he would put a wig, put a dress, makeup, and all that stuff, and he would go to parties. And he was not a trans. No. He was just doing that for fun. So $11 million for that perfume bottle, not bad, huh? The last one of Duchamp, I want to show you. When Duchamp came to New York, he lived on 67th Street West, and he was walking on Columbus Avenue, and there was a hardware store, and he saw a shovel like this one. And a Frenchman had never seen a snow shovel before. There's no snow in France. All had some political divergence. They were very opinionated people. They knew what they wanted, and so basically it ended, officially ended, I should say. So they staged their own funeral, and lo and behold, they all met at the Baha School in Germany, and Zara said, Dada is useless like everything else in life. Okay, that's not very cheerful. André Breton, who was we're going to talk about him, of course, he said Dada is no longer an issue, and its funeral caused no rioting. Dada proponents turned into surrealism. They all moved to listen to Breton, and abstract art started. Kandinsky came right along that time. And then we got the pop art. Pop art is kind of a sign of a little bit of a Dada. You know, you look at Jeff Koons, who makes those balloons. I don't know if you've seen that. He takes those balloons, you know, the clowns, they make balloons for the kids, a little horse, and Jeff Koons does that. And he said, this is my work of art, and it sells for thousands of dollars, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, the big ones. In summary, we've talked about Dada as a precursor of surrealism. Now, surrealism kind of overlapped Dada a little bit, and of course, André Breton, a Frenchman, wrote the Manifeste du Surréalisme, which is the manifesto of surrealism. So, and its subtitle, Poisson soluble. I don't know if you can read that, which means soluble fish. So you can see those people had a lot of imagination. It's a small book, and it articulates the principle, the core principles and the goals of surrealism. Breton was a writer, a poet, an art collector. He was not an artist, but he was very well known, very prestigious, and he knew he was important. So you see him here on the right. You know who is sitting with? Breton is on the left. Who's on the right with a little beard? Anybody? Trotsky. So that's they had affinities to all those people with ideas, anarchist, communist. Even me, when I was in Paris, I remember going to my father and said, "Oh, Dad, I think I'm going to join the Communist Party." And my father looked at me and said, "Why?" Oh, I said, "You know, Breton, Jean-Paul Sartre, all the literary people, a lot of artists, they're all communist. There must be something good about it. I want to know more." And he said, "Didier, if you join the Communist Party, I will disinherit you." Guess what? I did not join the Communist Party. So what does the book say? I'm going to read it. It's easier. The idea of surrealism is to express verbally in writing or in any other manner the true function of thought in the absence of control exerted by reason, so involuntary, and exempt from all aesthetics and moral concern. So it's a pure psychic automatism. You let the subconscious write or paint. So just go, just do something. The surrealist artist aim to allow the unconscious mind to express itself, often resulting in the depiction of illogical and dreamlike scenes and ideas. Dreamlike, you will see that there are different styles of surrealism. The third artist I'm going to show you is very much into the dream expression. So understand that Dada was more of a voluntary process, wanted to shock. It's anti-everything. Surrealism is more a subconscious process. You let your mind go. So, who influenced the surrealists? How are we doing in time? Not too bad, huh? Yeah. I see Pete looking at me. Yeah, originally I thought I was going to talk about, about everything about Dada, everything about surrealism, and I realized it's impossible. There's just too much to cover. So I cut down a lot of things, and hopefully I can stimulate some interest, and you can go to Wikipedia and read some books on it. It's fun. There's a lot of things there. So yeah, Karl Marx and Hegel, George Hegel, Albert Einstein, because of the expression between time and space, they were all fascinated with that. Carl Jung, who explored the subconscious, and also Sigmund Freud, of course. Yeah, I put the. I think I moved the picture. So Sigmund Freud is a funny story. André Breton, I just told you, he was very imbued of himself, and in 1920 he decides he wants to meet Freud. So he takes the train, go to Vienna, knock at the door, and unannounced, and this little old man, Freud, opens the door. Who are you? And he really got a very cool reception from Freud, and Breton never accepted that. He was really hurt by that. Later on he called Freud an old man without elegance who worked in a shabby office worthy of the neighborhood GP. Anyway, that's Breton. Of course, the ink, the Rorschach blood test was very important to them. Patrick Wahlberg in his book wrote something important, I think. Surrealism is less an art movement than a way of thinking, a way of life, which is why it had no single clearly recognizable style in the way, say, Cubism or Impressionist is. If you see an Impressionist or a Cubist, you know, that's Cubist, that's Impressionist. But Surrealism, sometimes say, well, just like the Ed Ruscha painting, it's all a bit surreal. So there's a little bit of Surrealism. So you could have, it's not like being pregnant, either you're pregnant or not. You could have a little bit of Surrealism or not at all. Anyway, so Surrealism developed, was started by the writers, the poets. It went to theater. I wrote something here. You can see how the irrationality, the nonsense of Dada merge into the subconscious surreal of the Surrealist movement. That's me writing that. In dance, if you take notes, write down relâche. You can go on YouTube and find this choreography. You see a woman walking out of the people, the audience, she goes up on stage, she sits down on a chair, she lights up a cigarette and smokes the cigarette, and after a while she throws the cigarette butt on the stage. There's a fireman that comes on the stage, pick up the cigarette butt, wipe the stage, and eventually she gets undressed. I mean, not totally, but and then she starts dancing, and she's very. It's a nice dance. The Merce Cunningham in the 20th and 21st century would be for me what did I do? Would be for me the Dada surrealist type of dance. So I'm saying that because you can really see, as we're running out of time here. So in dance, in music, I told you about John Cage, which I think is the most influential composer of the 20th century. Thank you. The filmmakers, you have Luis Buñuel, the Spanish director. Those are cult movies. You find them on YouTube. Le Chien Andalou, the Andalasian Dog is really an amazing short movie, same as Entr'acte. But Monty Python is surrealist to me. And then I hope you all saw Midnight in Paris. Anybody has seen that movie? Oh, quite a few hands up. Where Owen Wilson is a writer, and then he goes to, at night, he goes out in Paris and he meets Hemingway, F. Scott Fitzgerald and his wife Zelda, and Picasso and Buñuel, and he meets Man Ray and Dali. And there's a scene in Gertrude Stein's apartment where you see Gertrude Stein's portrait made by Picasso right above the sofa. It's really good. So let's talk about those three paintings, three painters. We'll start with Dali. And you can see him here with his mustache. You recognize he always was dressed very sharply. He lived very close to where I lived, actually very close to Dodi, where my wife used to live in Paris. And so she would see him he would always go to the same restaurant, La Coupole in Montparnasse. And if you go to that restaurant after 10 o'clock, half the time he was there. And he always has a cane, a fancy looking cane, a fancy red velvet jacket, and always very dapper and showing. That was his job, to be showing and promote his art. He did very well that way. Yeah, Dali was, you couldn't miss him in the street, unlike Picasso. Picasso lived half a block from me, and I never saw him. He was, or at least I did not recognize him. One day I asked where, the French people, they buy their bread every morning, nice, fresh, and warm, and really good. And I asked the lady, do you see Picasso? He said, oh yeah, he comes here every day. When he's not in the south of France, because Picasso was getting old at that time. He was very successful. He spent a lot of time in the south of France, and he had a lot of women to care for. But Picasso was Picasso. That's Dali was Dali also. He had a place in Paris, a place in Rome, no, in Madrid, a place in the USA. He lived in Los Angeles. He had several places in Spain. He spent his I'm sorry, the melting clock. Where did he get the idea of the melting clock? Well, first of all, the clock was very important, you know that, because of Einstein's influence. They thought it was very important to show a clock. But Dali was eating camembert, which is some kind of brie cheese, and if you put it on the board, if it's well ripe, it's going to run out. So apparently he got the idea of the melting clock from looking at the camembert running out of the cheese board. There are a few museums for Dali. The house on the left is his house in Cadaqués. Cadaqués is a lovely, lovely little village on the Mediterranean, just south of the French border. And that's where he spent most of his summer. And I had a friend who had a house there. And one day she says, "Oh, come and spend a few days with us in Cadaqués. It's nice." So with my future wife, we went down from Paris, drove all the way down, and spent a few days there. And one day on the beach, she said to us, "Well, you know, let's go and see. Let's go to Dali's house." And I said, "Well, what's there?" And well, it's his house, and yeah, but can you get in? I said, "Of course we can get in. If Dali is not there, we'll be able to get in." I said, "How come?" "Well, you know, it's full of students there." So Dali had a bunch of art students coming every summer to Dada house to do his paintings, to do his lithograph, and some people think the students were signing the lithograph for him. So they did most of the work, and Dali would come once in a while. He would change a few things, okay, do this, do that, and but Dali was extremely talented. But to finish the story, so you know what I said, 20-year-old stupid like I was, or like I am, or like I was, I hope. I said, you know, the beach is really nice, and I'm not sure I want to go there, and so we didn't go. The same story happened to me a year or two before. On a Sunday morning, a friend of mine calls me and he said, "Oh, Didier, you have a car?" I said, "Yes, I always had a car in Paris. It was fun." And he said, "Let's go and spend the day with Calder." Alexander Calder, the sculptor, big sculpture, also the mobiles. And he said, I said, "Well, do you know him?" I said, "I don't know him well, but I know who's going to be there. Vieira da Silva, you probably don't know the name. She's the most important painter, Portuguese painter, mostly abstract art. If you go to Portugal, I mean, she's as well known as Charles de Gaulle in France." So I said, "You know, I don't know, I have to meet this girl this afternoon." And so I didn't go. See how stupid you can be when you're 20? Try to tell that to your kids or grandkids. Anyway, those are the little stories. During the Spanish War, Civil War in 36 to 39, Dali was renewed his faith. Well, during the war, he was a good friend of General Franco. and that didn't, André Breton didn't like that at all. So he expelled him, officially expelled him from the Surrealist movement. Got 10 minutes. We're good. But Dali didn't care, because by that time he was wealthy, he was well known all over the world. But he was expelled, and so Dali rejoined his faith, Catholic faith, and that's why you have so many of Dali's art that have a religious theme. You can see here the Madonna on the left, probably painted from the window of that house we just saw, because I know the place, and you have the water there, you have the cliff on the right, and then on the bottom left you have an ocean. The Mediterranean is full of oceans, and you have to be very careful when you swim in the Mediterranean not to put your foot on it. It hurts bad. And on the right, it's God looking at his son on the cross. So he went to mystic painting, but although he was very talented, a very fast painter to great eye. A lot of the artists put a lot of sexualism in their art. You can see the Venus de Milo, the sculpture with the doors, the lobster, that's another symbol of sexualism. And then the sofa, which is called, what is it called? Mae West Lips Sofa. You could have guessed that. You know, it was funny, yeah. On the right, you have the Columbus, the arrival of the discovery of America by Christopher Columbus, and the woman portrait there is his wife, Gala. He painted his wife in many of the paintings, many. He was very devoted to his wife. They stayed together all their life. They both had a lot of affairs. Dali had a lot of girlfriends, one after the other, and she did too with a man. At some point, Dali bought her a castle very close to Cadaqués, and he renovated just for her so she could have her privacy. So they were very understanding of their private life, and they were happy that way. The painting on the left, it's called Swans Reflecting Elephants. Okay, well, all right. You may wonder how those artists find those titles. Well, it's very easy. They call their friends and they meet at night and, okay, what do you call this painting? And everybody would kind of say, oh, why don't we call it, I don't know, Swans by the Coast or whatever. And I've been to some of those sessions where you have to start thinking. I was not very good at finding titles. My friends were a lot better than me. So that's about it. People said that Dali was a man. The only difference between me and a madman, he said, is that I'm not mad. All right, Magritte, that's the second surrealist we're going to talk about. Always wearing the bowler hat there. He was from Belgium. As much as Dali was flamboyant, Magritte was kind of unassuming. He was born in a small town in Belgium. Actually, I know the town. I went to boarding school in Belgium. Anybody has ancestry from Belgium here? No, nobody. Oh, so I can tell you stories. A pretty boring place. I went to middle school and high school in a boarding school in Belgium, just a few miles from where he was born. It's flat country, it rains all the time, it's cold. Anyway, so Magritte was an ordinary bourgeois, very, very good draftsman. Him and his brother had a wallpaper factory, so they would design wallpaper because wallpaper in those days, everybody would put wallpaper on their wall. He had a tough go in Belgium, so eventually he went to Paris, and he was very well received by Breton and all the other surrealists. But eventually he ran out of money. He was not selling. His wife was Catholic. She was wearing a cross. So wearing a cross among a bunch of communists is not usually well received. And she felt some animosity. She didn't like Paris. So eventually they went back to Belgium, and to survive, guess what he was doing to survive? Well, he was doing his wallpaper thing, but he forged. He made forgeries of Braque, Picasso, and Di Chirico. Unbelievable, true story. Anyway, you may know this because if you have seen Blue Man Group and other shows, they always talk about the pipe. This is not a pipe. And Magritte to answer, of course, this is not a pipe. Try to fill it with tobacco. So yes, he was. There's actually a street in Brussels called "This Is Not a Street," and he has a museum. You see the green apple, which probably was the idea from Apple computer to use the apple. People say that's where they got the idea. You see the green apple a lot in his paintings. The green apple, the bowler hats, and you can see the painting in the middle where the easel, the painting on the easel, kind of merge into the scenery. And all his paintings have some mysterious feel, enigmatic. Magritte said, if you try to ask yourself, what does it mean? It doesn't mean anything, because mystery means nothing either. It is unknowable. So basically, it's just his subconscious that is being expressed. This painting was sold for over $4 million. Not my favorite, but fairly typical of Magritte. Yeah, two paintings. The one on the right is typical of Belgium. You know, it rains, and the buildings are boring, gray. You know, this is Belgium. But I love the Belgians. The Belgian people are very clean. When you going to my home to my boarding school, you could tell it was a striking difference when you go from France to Belgium. All of a sudden you see flowers in front of the homes and everything is clean and neat. And then you move back to France and it's dirty. And the Belgians are, they are different. You can always tell them on the beach. If you see somebody eating cold French fries and drinking champagne on the beach, they are Belgium. Anyway, so the painting on the right is really, I think, really spectacular. You have a mixture of night. I have 5 minutes, right? 5 minutes? Yeah. I think we're good for 5 minutes. It shows the night, the daytime. It's very mysterious, very mysterious. You see the light in the windows, what's happening, and you have the light in the street that reflects into the water, of course, because it probably rained just before. But I think this is a fantastic painting. It's called The Empire of Lights, and it's sold at Christie last November. Anybody would pay $1 million for that? 5 million? 10 millions? 48. Do I get more than 48? Yeah, come on. Oh, yeah, come on, John, you spoke. Okay, it's sold for, you're all sitting down, $121 million. Yeah? And change. Amazing. But I think it's a fabulous painting. All right, the last one, Chirico, one of my favorite surrealists. He was born in Greece. He's Sicilian. The reason why he was born in Greece is his father was a railroad engineer. So they would travel a lot. During his travels, Chirico managed to study art in pretty much every city in Europe: Athens, Munich, Milan, Florence, and I forgot some. So he was very well trained, spent a lot of time in museum, copying art, just like Dali. Dali used to do that when he was young. He would go to the Prado and copy the masters. So those guys, they were artists. And Breton liked Chirico. So this is his autoportrait done in a Renaissance style, because you see the window in the corner and all the Renaissance painting where you see the Madonna with the little Jesus. There's always a window open on the side or an opening. So that's his autoportrait. Those two represent the Onieric style. Onieric means dream in Greek. So this is another style of surrealism. That's why I picked up on Chirico. Plus, I like him. You see, there's always a mood of nostalgia. Everything is empty. It's strange. It's very tense to look at. A lot of shadows. Yeah, the one on the left is fantastic, I think. You see again the shadows, always the arcades, always that. The one on the right, yeah, right. You know, you have a statue here, which is not in the middle of the stand. You got a little trend because of his father. You got the clock because of Einstein. The long shadows. I think it creates a feel of expectation and what's going on there. It's very, very taking. The problem with Chirico is that after a while, around World War II, he reverted to classic academic art, and that did not sell. So he was all of a sudden, here he was painting and didn't make any money. So once in a while he would make one of those, sell it for a lot of money, and then he could go on. So it's kind of too bad that he stopped. It reminds me, I have always the analogy between Chirico and Arnold Schoenberg, the composer. Arnold Schoenberg started with the 8-tonal and the 12-tone system of composition, but around World War II, that was it. He reverted to academic art. And here are two great people who they have something great going and they don't explore it to the end of their lives. They go back, probably Mike Martin would say they came back to their own reason and they went back to academic art. Anyway, there was a gallery in Paris I used to walk by a lot, and they always had a Chirico in the window. And one day I walked by, and it was closed. And I asked around, and what's going on there? Oh yeah. They were selling a lot of forgeries, fake Chirico. There are lots of fake Chiricos around, unfortunately. So we saw Dali, the fantastic imagery. We saw Magritte, the mystic, enigmatic painting. Chirico, the metaphysical, the dreamlike. If Dada is pretty much dead, although I don't really think it is, Surrealism is not dead at all. I took this picture about 3 years ago. I was walking in Paris, and there was this gallery, that specialized in Surrealist art. Those are all modern artists, contemporary artists. So it's not dead. There are still people. All right. So to finish, I just want to mention in 1 minute, if I may, because of time, I could not mention Max Ernst. Max Ernst is one of the great surrealist painters. He's portrayed here. He is German, blonde hair, blue eyes, very, very striking, good-looking guy. He's there with his fourth wife. Yeah, he was married 4 times. That's Dorothea Tanning. She became a very well-known surrealist artist. By the way, his third wife was Peggy Guggenheim, because for a while he lived in New York and married Peggy Guggenheim for a while. I'm sure for him as well. But he was very affected by the war. Here's one of his paintings. He calls this one "Devastation of War." Leonora Carrington, I just finished reading her her biography, fascinating. Go to, you don't have to read the book, but read the Wikipedia. Fascinating woman. She was born in England. Her family was extremely wealthy. They lived in mansions. But she had nothing to do with all the wealth of her family. There's a story that she went to a debutante ball. You know a debutante ball? Where when you're 18, you're presented to the aristocracy. I went to a few of those balls. It's very boring. And she went with a book, sat in a corner, and that was her. She didn't want to be sold, as she said, to the highest bidder. She was very influenced by Jerome Bosch, I think. I didn't read that anywhere, but it really looks like Jerome Bosch, the Flemish 16th century, 15th century Flemish painter. Paul Delvaux, another Belgian, he always painted the same model and the woman with a big hat and the skeleton. It's always the same thing. Very talented painter. And then Juan Miro. I just want to mention one thing about Juan Miro. Don't show that to your grandkids because they may ask questions about that. There was a lot of sexualism in his artwork. I have a lithograph by Miro that I put behind the door because I don't want my grandkids to ask questions. But you know, if they ask you, Grandpa, what's the right thing with a little tail floating around, and what's the black hole? You may have trouble explaining that. And this is not the end, but it is.
What a fascinating presentation. We do have hopefully a little time for questions, but since we are running a little bit late, please keep your questions short. I'll start with the first question, which is, of the surrealist paintings, which are the ones that you would like to have hanging in your house?
I'll pick a Chirico, Di Chirico, like the last one with the clock, the statue. Actually, I've made a couple of paintings. I'm not a painter, but I've made a couple of paintings like that, which I should get out of the closet in that style of. Anyway, that's my favorite.
I think you said that you have a Miro that you hide from your grandkids, so I guess you like that one also. Yeah, please. Yeah, here comes Mike Martin.
Uh-oh, this is scary. Mike.
Anyway.
Okay, I'm done.
Thanks for that introduction. Yeah, great presentation on a topic that's difficult to understand for ordinary people, I think. Just a question on, we've had Impressionism emanated from Paris that migrated to the United States. Surrealism doesn't seem to have migrated. You know, there weren't artists in the United States that seemed to adopt it. Is that a perception of me, or is it uniquely European, or how would you explain that?
Well, the explanation is World War II. They were in Paris until World War II. And then, by the way, that's a great question. They all went to New York at World War II. The Jewish ones went, like Man Ray went back. Max Ernst didn't go. Max Ernst, the German, stayed. He stayed in France. He was arrested by the French Gestapo, and it was really close for him. Eventually, he went in the south of France and stayed put there during the World War II. But to answer your question, yes, they all went to New York, and that's how New York became an international center of art. And they went to Mexico. Mexico, around World War II, became a very hot center for surrealism. The reason is that people the like of Frida Kahlo and Diego Rivera and all the like of those painters, they were very influenced by the pre-Columbian art, you know, the skeleton, the dancing skeletons and the witches and all that pre-Columbian history was really right in line with the surrealists. So a big group of them went to Mexico. Leonora Carrington died there, and there were a lot of those people. But you're right, surrealism came from different countries, you know, Chirico from Italy, Dali from Spain, Miro from Spain, Ernst Maxens from Germany. We all think they are French. If you ask a French person, is Dali French? Oh yeah, he's French. Is Picasso French? Oh yes, he's French. Because they lived in France so much. I'm the first one to think they are French because they lived there pretty much all their adult creative life. Did I answer your question? All right, okay.
How do I get you online? Bill? Bill Tittle?
Oh, yes. Wonderful presentation, Didier. There's a fullness about your approach to life, which was very good. But I got to tell you, I'm on the Mike Martin side because I'm too much of a, I want to explain stuff. I understand there's mystery. So this really isn't a question, but you've just made a choice. And yeah, you can't explain mysteries, but you try to explain mysteries, and sometimes you actually get answers. So, but you're very comfortable with. I don't know what my question is. I mean, you're comfortable with your approach, but
Well, Bill,
aren't you missing something there?
Bill, you don't explain mystery. Don't explain mystery. Mystery is mystery. There's no explanation. That's what Magritte said. Don't try to explain the paintings.
It's just a lot of things that used to be called mysteries have been explained. But so be it. God bless you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
DJ, thanks a lot. I appreciate your observations and your enthusiasm for this style of art. I go to a lot of museums. Whenever I travel, I try to go to a museum. So, oh, thanks. It's my time to ask a question. If we were in New York, what would be the museums that we would go to see this style of art? So I know there's some biggies, but are there any in particular? MoMA?
Yeah, MoMA.
The Met?
MoMA. Yeah, the Met, we were there not too long ago with Mike. They have a, while you were not looking, Mike, I took a run through the contemporary wing. They have a nice collection there. But MoMA, of course, is the place to go. Yeah, we were looking at, we had a trip with Mike Barton, and Mike is so knowledgeable about all that. He described all sorts of paintings, and at one point when he was looking, we're not looking because he's not into modern art. I went to another wing. You didn't know that, huh? Yeah, MoMA, I can't think of any other. Oh yeah, of course, the Guggenheim, yeah. The Guggenheim, not the Whitney. I'm not a big fan of the Whitney. You see, another thing I didn't say is that as much as the Dada were political, the Surrealists were not too much into politics. And then politics came back into art just in the last 20, 30 years. If you go to the Whitney, you know, I don't like that museum. It's, they show you a picture because the artist is from certain social or race, and that makes it a great painting. And, you know, to me, it's not the reason why, but it seems like the Whitney is very, for them, all that DEI thing is very important at the Whitney. So I've been there a couple of times, and every time I said, what am I doing? You know, what are they doing? They buy millions of painting for millions of dollars, and you know, it's an ink block, basically. There's really nothing much to it. So I don't know what the modern art is going to, but it's not for me, I'm sorry.
DJ, thank you so much. You've given us a marvelous presentation which weaves together the artists, the art, the movements, the history, and a whole lot of interesting stories thrown in as well. It was inspiring, and maybe I'll get a de Chirico for my wall also.
Sounds like a good idea.
I do like the mystery there. Yeah. We have two ways of thanking you for this wonderful presentation. One is a certificate of appreciation. And you can see that there is an orchid there. And in 1930, Summit, where the Old Guard was founded, was an orchid capital of perhaps the US. And the other way we have of thanking you is the Old Guard salute.
Thank you. Thank you. You're the best.